Update. I've read all of the comments so far, and I just want to add that I have been made aware that credit cards are not the devil. I was raised by my grandmother, who always stressed to me that credit cards are the biggest reason people go into debt. So I was afraid of having that happen to me, and I never got one. I understand that with financial responsibility, they can be an incredible tool to build up good credit. I'm going to do some more research and will probably get one in the near future. So thank you to everybody who changed my perspective on this. Also, I need to stress how awful I feel about threatening to take our daughter to a hotel to get him to tell me the truth. I know this was manipulative, cruel, and, as much as I hate to admit it, hurtful. I should never have said that, especially since there was no weight behind it. Unless I found out worse news, like he was cheating or has another family he's supporting. I have apologized to my partner, and I feel like a complete jerk for saying it. Hell, even thinking it. He is the most wonderful dad, and our daughter is so lucky to have him. Other than this financial BS he's been hiding, he has been nothing short of amazing in our relationship. I think he just dug a hole he couldn't get out of and didn't know how I'd react, since I'm clearly a little overreactive when I receive bad news. I can't blame him there. I need to work on that so we can improve our communication. We are also going to figure out a payment plan for this debt. He has a busy season coming up at his job, and he gets a good amount of extra pay. So that should help us get ahead on it. I'm also going to bring up couples therapy to him and see what his thoughts are. Therapy is never a bad idea. I appreciate all the feedback I've received so far and will continue to receive. Thank you. My partner and I have been together for 9 years. We dated for 5 years, then got engaged in 2020, right before Infection 19 hit. We decided a big wedding ceremony wasn't what we wanted. Plus, with the lockdown, we couldn't gather people together anyway, so we just never prioritized getting married. Here we are now with a 2-year-old daughter who is our entire world. Our relationship already feels like a marriage. We live together, have a child, function in the world as adults should. We've got each other and our daughter and our dog, and life is good. We rarely fight, rarely have disagreements. We're just on the same page. Always. It sometimes feels too good to be true. Last month, we decided to finally apply for our marriage license. We plan to get eloped this month or next, and I've been giddy telling our friends and family about it. But then, the day before the marriage license arrived in the mail, my partner received a credit card statement for almost $9,000. It stated that he had until April 12th to figure out a payment plan or pay in full. He has one credit card and doesn't use it, so naturally I freaked out, thinking he is a victim of credit card fraud. I told him to call their fraud department right away, but he waited a few days. That was weird to me. If I got a random statement for that much money, I'd be on the phone immediately and every day after until I had answers. I've been bugging him about it daily for weeks. Today I had enough of his stalling and told him if he didn't call them by 4 p.m., I'd be taking our daughter to a hotel and staying there for the night. Maybe that was a little extreme, but I had a bad feeling about it. And I needed him to understand how serious this is, because we're not rich. We don't have this money just lying around to pay it off. And that's when he showed me his statement. He hasn't used the card since 2022, but he stopped using it because he fell behind on payments. And what is due now is mostly accumulated late fees and interest buildup. I am crushed. I feel like complete shoot because he hid this from me for all this time. He said he wasn't hiding it, but I definitely don't recall him telling me. So not sure what you call that. I'm especially sensitive toward this because back in the summer of 2020, I found out my mother stole my entire life savings, $34,000. A very long story for another time, so I have trauma from that resurfacing. I know it's his credit card, and it's his responsibility to pay back, not mine. But if I marry him, it will be my problem too. And who knows if there's more information he's withholding. I took our marriage license packet and told him to return it to the courthouse himself. They request you to return it, whether you get married or not, since it's a legal document. Legal? I guess I just want to know, am I being overly dramatic? I feel like he has ruined my trust, and I'm just so hurt. I have made an effort to not mess with credit cards. I have never had one, not even for emergencies. I pride myself on that, and then he goes and accumulates all of this debt behind my back. Would appreciate any opinions from those who are not emotionally charged by the situation. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you asked for unemotional responses. You've had quite enough people telling you that $9,000 isn't that much, and plenty of tips for how to sort it out, and plenty of people telling you the risks of marrying someone who is bad with money. Fair enough. I'm going to go in a different direction in case you actually like this man. I'm not particularly bad with money, and I have a near-perfect credit score. But apparently I have more sympathy with people who are bad with money than most of Reddit. No matter what he says, he obviously avoided telling you about the debt. This is probably because he knew how you'd react. I'm sure he feels ashamed of the debt and ashamed of his inability to sort it out alone. And those feelings probably make it much harder, both for him to talk about it and for him to actually sort it out. A good relationship can be a safe place where we confess our scariest fears and mistakes and have them forgiven and get support in dealing with them. I don't know if you're this severe towards his other behaviors or if it's particularly around money. But if you'd like to actually grow together out of this as a couple, it's worth trying to create a non-judgmental space for him to talk about why he felt like he had to hide this from you, and then have you forgive him. And separately, he should hear how anxious the debt made you and express his understanding and support for you. Then see if you can go forward, helping each other with money, rather than judging and being scared of it. But if you don't want to make that effort, then everyone else is probably right. It's not the best idea to marry someone who is scared of telling you their mistakes. Comment 2. Definitely do not agree to get eloped until he has paid off that debt, or it will turn into your problem the moment you are married. He needs to deal with that shoot before he marries anyone. The fact that he hid that from you speaks that he is deliberately deceptive, which now begs the question, can you trust him? On a side note, I was like you until recently as far as never having a credit card. Then I realized I can have a lot more safety than using my debit card. What if it gets compromised and I need a replacement card? It takes 2 weeks to get one, so how do I pay bills in the meantime? Gives me cash back on purchases anyway. Helps me keep track of my purchases better than manually checking a bank statement. Helps build my credit, which is in the high 700 ES last I checked. And I still never go into debt because I either pay my credit statements instantly through my app or I have it set to auto-pay straight from my bank at the end of the month as a safety net. So I don't overlook anything. The high interest rate, on mine it can go as high as 30% yikes, is irrelevant, so long as you pay immediately, as there is no charge. For your husband to have a charge from his means, he delayed paying for some reason. As far as I'm concerned, my credit card is my debit card, meaning if I can't afford something, then I can't afford it. This way I'll never fall into the credit trap. It's really easy to maintain so long as you are a responsible adult. I should have been doing that a long time ago. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around to hear more. So, a lot has happened since the last post. After the whole credit card fiasco, things took a turn for the worse. My partner's busy season at work, turns out it wasn't going to be as lucrative as we hoped. The company hit a rough patch, and instead of extra pay, they started talking about cutbacks. That's when he did something I still can't wrap my head around. He took out a loan, a big one, without telling me. Said he wanted to clear the credit card debt to ease my mind. But now, we're in deeper, with a loan hanging over our heads. I found out when the loan statement came in the mail. I thought it was a mistake, but no, it was in his name, all right. I confronted him and he broke down, said he felt cornered and didn't know what else to do. I was livid. How could he make such a decision without even talking to me? It's like he doesn't get that we're supposed to be a team. And then, as if things couldn't get any more complicated, my mother showed up out of the blue. Remember the life savings she stole? Well, she's back, claiming she's turned over a new leaf and wants to make amends. She handed me an envelope with a check, a fraction of what she took, but still a significant amount. Said it was all she could scrape together. I didn't want to take it, but with our financial mess, I had no choice. I deposited the check, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe we could breathe. But the bank called the next day. The check had bounced. My mother had lied. Again. She'd vanished by then, of of course. I felt like a fool twice over. My partner and I had a long, hard talk. We decided to keep the marriage license packet. We're going to work through this somehow. He's looking for a second job, and I've started doing freelance work on the side. We're cutting back on everything that isn't essential. It's going to be tough, but we're determined to get out of this hole he's dug for us. I'm not happy about any of this. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I'm also scared. Scared of what might come next. Scared of the secrets that might still be lurking. But I can't let that fear control me. We have a daughter to think about, a life to rebuild. I have to believe we can get through this, even if right now it feels like we're just pretending everything's okay. Thanks for reading. My husband gets off to bikini pics of women. He knows while I struggle with my postpartum body. So I expose his creepy habit to all his friends and watch his reputation crumble. Let me preface this with some context. First and foremost, I love my husband deeply. We have been together for a decade, and I would ride or die for this man. I come from a background of divorced parents with a tremendous amount of instability, dishonesty, and distrust between them that I personally witnessed over and over. My relationship with my husband, however, has always worked so well despite that trauma because I feel so much emotional safety and trust with him. I am also a baseline insecure woman regarding my looks, but it is severely exacerbated by the fact that I had a baby 3 months ago, and my body has totally changed, 20 plus pounds heavier. None of my clothes fit anymore. My looks in general have changed. I'm visibly tired, my hair is in a ponytail half the time, and I simply don't feel beautiful these days. My husband is aware as I have shared these insecurities with him. The biggest challenge right now, however, is my inability to have intimacy due to physical birth trauma that I'm addressing medically. I have supplemented with oral, foreplay, etc., but I feel so incredibly guilty about my inability to fully provide sexually, above all the other inadequacies I've been feeling. All that being said, my husband is a frequent masturbator. He always has been, even when we were having intimacy regularly. With this, he is big on corn. I have always embraced this about him. I don't believe in sexually repressing your partner if it doesn't cause harm to the trust in your relationship. Lately, I have had some resentment about this given the obviously sharp increase in frequency and the fact that I haven't enjoyed myself sexually in so long, as well as my acute rise in insecurities. Simply put, it just hasn't felt as blasé as it used to. To know that my husband has been finding so much intimacy pleasure from other beautiful women, knowing that I can't give him that same thing right now. A mixture of insecurity, guilt, and inadequacy. This part, however, I have been holding to myself. I know how important masturbation is to him, and his intent has nothing to do with any of the things I'm feeling. I never want to make him feel ashamed of his sexuality. And if this is what he needs right now to get through our forced rut, then I am, at the end of the day, very accepting of it. These are my issues to bear and out of his control. The other day, however, I found out that he's been self-intimacy to downloaded bikini pictures of beautiful women he's known in the past. Classmates, co-workers, etc. One of these women I actually jokingly asked at the time of his knowing her whether I should be worried. I guess I had a gut feeling, and it wasn't such a joke after all. This was my limit. I can't exactly explain why right now, as I process my feelings. But I know it has thrown my feelings of inadequacy and guilt over the edge, and it has really damaged my trust for the time being. It's to a point where I don't want to be touched by him, and I'm laying awake right now, trying to sort through it all in my head, wishing I weren't laying next to him. I haven't shared this with him yet because, like I said, I don't want to make him feel ashamed or guilty. But at some point, I'm going to have to discuss this with him for the sake of a continued, healthy relationship. I am looking for some insight. Is this normal? Do all men do this? Am I blowing this out of proportion? Should I let it go? How do I do that? If you have experienced this, how did you handle it? Please don't tell me I'm being an unreasonable partner. I'm using this as a forum to avoid being that stereotype. I want to be fair with my feelings, but I can't help but feel awful right now as I process through it all. Some help would definitely be appreciated. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This was hard to read. It really stood out to me how bad and guilty you feel about not being able to give him intimacy only 3 months after giving birth. I see you putting him first in every scenario here and just totally disregarding the enormous physical sacrifice you made to give birth. 3 months with physical trauma after birth doesn't even seem like that long to not have intimacy, considering everything. And it sounds like you're pleasing him anyway. And you even said you haven't gotten intimacy pleasure in so long. Look at all you are giving up for yourself, including your body. That's part of pregnancy, I get that. But it doesn't have to be part of a relationship too. This is not normal. You are not overreacting. I'd be very disgusted as well. I also think you need to stop worrying about being the cool girl. Comment 2. 3 months postpartum, and you're worried about how you're not giving him enough intimacy. LOL, I was just trying to survive. The no intimacy sucked, but good Lord, who was I to complain after my wife pushed that boulder out? The fact that you think right now is when to worry about his intimacy. Wellness is very telling. He needs to address his weird koyorn, and you deserve time to heal. Sucks all around. I'd ultimatum that shoot. It's weird and gross, and that's coming from someone weird and gross. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since I last wrote. So, I finally confronted my husband about the bikini pictures. It was a mess. I tried to keep my cool, but emotions got the better of me. I ended up admitting that I felt replaced by these images of women he knew. He was shocked, said he never meant to hurt me, that it was just a habit. But the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Then, in a moment of pure stupidity, I did something I regret. I messaged one of the women from the photos. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe some kind of solidarity. Instead, she told my husband. He was furious, said I'd invaded his privacy and embarrassed him. We had a huge fight, and I thought this was it, the end of us. But then, something unexpected happened. My husband's best friend, who'd heard about our fight, came over. He told my husband he was being an idiot, that he needed to see things from my perspective. He even shared his own story of messing up in his relationship and how he fixed it. It was a wake-up call for my husband. After a long talk, we decided to go to couples therapy. It's been tough, airing out all our issues, but it's helping. We're learning to communicate better, and I'm starting to feel like my old self again, slowly but surely. But just when things were looking up, another bombshell dropped. My husband got laid off. With the baby and now this, the stress was unbearable. We started fighting about money, about what to do next. It felt like we were back at square one. Then, out of the blue, my old boss called. She'd heard about my husband's job loss and offered me a position. It was a lifeline. I took the job, and it's been a game changer. We're still adjusting, but it's given us some stability. Through all this, I've learned a lot about forgiveness, about resilience, and I've seen a side of my husband I never knew. He's been really trying to make things right. He's cut back on the corn, he's more present with me and the baby, and he's actively looking for work. It's not perfect, but we're getting through it together, and for that, I'm grateful. Thanks for reading. My partner ignored my needs for years and cheated. But when I found out I was pregnant, I left him and took everything he loved. I, 30 years old female, messed up big time and unintentionally hurt my partner, who is 32 years old male. How can I rectify? Basically, I've been neglecting my own needs regarding intimacy. I like to finish during intimate acts, but I am almost always left unsatisfied after he finishes and ends intimacy. Intimacy will start with me getting him hard, then him asking for penetration, resulting in him finishing, then intimacy ending. This is where I neglect my needs by not insisting on him making me orgasm, should I have to. He will almost never initiate foreplay for me. It's something I asked for once, and he responded by saying, "Don't direct me. This isn't my first time. I know what I'm doing." My lack of intimacy satisfaction has been building and growing into resentment. So I thought it would be a good idea to have a conversation with him about it. All I wanted was for him to start initiating giving me pleasure too, and making sure I orgasm during intimacy too, such as by fingering me before penetration to make me orgasm first, since I have no refractory period. Intimacy is over too quickly for me to even get close to finishing. I spoke from a place of emotion, therefore, was unable to clearly articulate my true feelings and point of view. So, this is one place where I messed up. I started by saying, I feel as though my intimacy satisfaction is unimportant. And he asked me to elaborate, so I added that I would like to change how we have intimacy by him fingering me first, so I finish, then us moving to penetration, so he can finish. And that way, I'll be satisfied. He asked why I felt like my satisfaction was unimportant, and was surprised that I felt as though intimacy was one-sided. But he knows that I don't finish since it's very physically obvious when I do. I also said that I give him blowjobs, but then that's it. I infrequently receive. He became silent and stepped out of the room for about 10 minutes to recollect himself, and returned to discuss further. He was deeply hurt by what I said, so I felt absolutely horrible. I made sure to clarify that I never intended to hurt him, and that I still very much enjoy intimacy with him, but I just like to orgasm too, that's all. Now he said that it's something that'll eat away at him, and he needs to be careful not to spiral. So clearly I've hurt his ego and given him an insecurity which I feel absolutely awful about. Never was my intention. I messed up big time with trying to communicate my needs and ended up hurting him. I should never have brought this up. I hate myself for it. How can I help him to feel better? Edit. Additional info. Thank you all for your comments. They've helped me to view this from a different perspective. He got me feeling bad since he said I shouldn't have spoken to him about it. I should have just started initiating and making him feel wanted and needed. Then he would respond by giving me what I need. I am so confused by this since I literally am only ever focusing my sole attention on giving him what he wants and needs. I have never said no to giving him a blowjob or hand job. I do my absolute best and spend time learning new techniques to please him, and have never said no to intimacy. I have even let him use my back door, even though it is truly excruciating for me 10/10 pain. So, I truly don't know what he means by me needing to fulfill his wants and needs. He has a need to finish too, so I ensure he does to the best of my ability every single time without hesitation. How can I do any better? I genuinely wonder. I would like to ask him how he feels his wants and needs are neglected, but I do worry about further hurting him. Ugh, I'm ranting now. Sorry. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. No, you did not mess up. You spoke clearly, unambiguously, and kindly, which is a gift. Your partner's bruised ego is not your problem. He absolutely needs to be able to accept constructive criticism, especially surrounding an important topic like your intimacy satisfaction. This is a red flag for me. He needs to develop the ability to listen and adapt, or you need to leave. This sort of behavior will be extremely impactful for the long haul. Good luck. Comment 2. That's impressive how quickly he dismissed your issue, turned you into the bad guy, and had you believing you need to apologize to him. Damn. Now he doesn't need to address your issue at all, and gets the bonus of having you trying to fix the problem he created. If it's not clear from the tone of my last paragraph, I think he's a manipulative, selfish scumbag who doesn't care about your needs or wants at all. And I know you deserve better than that. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more of this mess. So, after that whole disaster of a conversation, things went from bad to worse. He started acting distant, barely touching me, and it was like walking on eggshells every time we were in the same room. I thought I was doing the right thing by bringing up my needs, but it backfired big time. I was feeling pretty low, and then, out of nowhere, he drops a news on me. Turns out, he's been seeing someone else. Yeah, you heard that right. He said it was because he felt inadequate after our talk and needed to prove himself. As if that wasn't enough, the other woman is someone I know, someone I thought was a friend. The betrayal stung like a slap in the face. I was angry, hurt, and confused. How could he do this to me? And with her? But here's where it gets even more twisted. He begged for forgiveness, said it was a one-time mistake, that he was lost and confused. And you know what? I forgave him. I know it sounds crazy, but I did. Maybe it was because I felt guilty for hurting him in the first place. Or maybe I was just desperate not to lose him. Either way, I took him back. And I can't help but feel like I've made myself look weak. Things were rocky, but we were trying to move past it. Then, as if we hadn't been through enough, I found out I was pregnant. The timing couldn't have been worse. We were both in shock, and it forced us to really look at our relationship. Was this what we wanted? Could we make it work for the sake of a child? He promised to change, to be better, to be the man I needed him to be. And for a while, it seemed like he was really trying. He started being more attentive, more caring. But old habits die hard, and soon enough, he was back to his old self, neglecting my needs, both emotionally and physically. I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped in a cycle of unhappiness. But then, something inside me snapped. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't bring a child into this toxic environment. So, I made a choice. I left him. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the most freeing. I realized that I had to put myself and my baby first. I couldn't fix him, and I couldn't make him want to change. That was something he had to do on his own. Now I'm starting over. It's not easy, but I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I'm focusing on myself and my child, and for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about the future. Thanks for listening to my story. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.